One of the first things I thought about when considering the concept of progress was whether or not it could be quantifiably measured. And I'm not so sure that it can. Sure, you can measure things like how much weight you lifted, like is your total going up, how well did you do on a test, things like that. But I don't think that those are the best markers for measuring the progress of yourself as a human being, and perhaps, for lack of a better word, for measuring the progress of your soul. One of the reasons is that if you kind of define yourself along those guidelines, it can be dangerous. So if you, and I have done this, and I did this for a long time in my life, defined myself as a student, and I knew that as long as I was doing well in school and I was maintaining what I considered to be somewhat of an elite intellect, that things were generally going all right. But inevitably, unless you stay in academia, but I still think inevitably you have to get away from grades at some point. And so what happens when you lose that kind of superficial marker of progress as an adult? You probably feel like you're kind of lost at sea, just kind of shrouded in the mist. You don't really know where you're going because you have nothing really to steer towards. It's kind of funny, I was watching Adventure Time this morning, and BMO has this quote where he says maybe one of the things about being an adult is you don't really know if you're doing quote-unquote good or bad, or if you're moving in the right direction. I think there may be some truth to that. Moreover, when you measure yourself kind of by, I guess, man-made scales, I think you're always probably going to come up short. These scales or measurements that we have are imperfect, and they're subject to the bias of humans because humans are imperfect. So why would you try to subjugate yourself to this kind of, paltry external source of kind of self-fulfillment almost? And don't get me wrong, I think this can be something that's extremely productive for some people. In other words, constantly striving to build up these kind of imaginary societal markers, such as points on a test, how big your house is, or how much money you have, how many dollars you have in the bank. And I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy these things. What I'm really saying is that, and I'm not saying you shouldn't try to succeed either. But what I'm really saying is that you should try. You should really, really, really try. Try as fucking hard as you can at something that you're passionate about, and just let that be your obsession. And I think that's where progress really, really comes from. And I think that's a big place where you're gonna start to kind of find a line between long-term sustainable happiness or contentment, whatever you want to call it, or fulfillment, and kind of just stressing out over things that seem important because that's how you're used to measuring yourself, but in reality are probably not that critical. If you watch The Confidence Mental Muscle, you may start to notice a theme here, but again, I think the progress comes from the immeasurable hours, days, weeks, and years of work that you put in. And I even think work is almost too strong of a word. Like, not even work, just fucking effort. Like, just try really hard. Like, we have this kind of concept in our society where it's like not cool to be a tryhard. Like, why are you trying so hard, man? Like, I just never got that, and I always I don't want to say hated, but I just really did not like that mentality, because I've always been somebody that when I set my mind to something, I try very, very hard at it. Once I really decide that's what I want. But I think that's that effort that really changes you, and changes you for the better, and that's what pushes you forward. And that is being progressive. And that's really, it's going to change you. It's going to create a new person that is, ready for opportunity and is ready to help other people and actually progress society as a whole. And again, I just don't think it's those material things that are going to bring the same degree of fulfillment as what I just mentioned. And the other thing is, I really don't think it matters, like, what it is, like, as long as you're not hurting other people, like, I don't think it matters, like, what it is you're doing to fulfill yourself. Just do something. Just that you are doing and putting in that effort. I think that's enough. As long as it's something you like, you're not hurting other people, and it's something that you're really passionate about. I think really some of the human race's like greatest discoveries have just been people who took things too far, quote unquote, that nobody had really thought to kind of escalate to that degree, or as Noam Chomsky frequently says, things that people before did not allow themselves to be curious about. Allow yourself to be curious about things that seem like they're just inherent, or like they're just the way it is. And when you really start thinking about why, I think that's when some of the greatest things happen. And it might seem silly. I believe it's called the Linnaean system of taxonomy. Is the current system we use for classifying basically organisms, or any organism that we discover on our planet. And it just came from a guy who he liked to name things. When he was like 20 years old, he would just sit and catalog names of plants by himself, and he just came up with a system on his own, just sitting cataloging them, because that's what he liked to do. Like, that seems really weird, but we needed that. And if you just pursue whatever it is that you like doing, there is almost no telling, as long as you put that effort in. And if it's, in some cases, an effort that nobody would have ever thought to apply in this area, as long as you put that in, there's no telling what kind of discovery or innovation that you're gonna come up with. So even if it seems just really, really obscure, don't be afraid to pursue it. If it's against, kind of the typical convention that we have. And again, I just think that's the material things are simply a byproduct of what I just mentioned, of the passion, or of just simply pursuing the things that you enjoy and that are basically your obsession, and just by following that deep-seated drive that you have for something that you love. And it's almost ironic, because I think most of the time you're going to be so caught up in that pursuit and looking ahead that you're not even going to notice how far you've come. But again, I don't think that's the important part. The important part is just that you keep going. That's what being progressive is, that you just keep going, because you just don't know any other way, and it's just what you want at the end of the day. And that's kind of what I mean as well by saying I don't know that, progress of a person as a soul, or however you want to put it, is something we can actually quantify. And trust me, that is not something that, or there's not a conclusion that gives me a ton of relief, as I would much rather be able to have some sort of quantifiable number to know if I'm doing all right. But I just don't think that's the way it works. And that's the nature of that sort of individual, and by that I mean the progressive individual. You're always looking, somewhere into the future. Kind of in your mind's eye, you have this kind of vision before you that's, kind of just drifts like a fog, and whenever you try to grab at it, it slips through your fingers, and you just kind of keep going. But I think you're still better off doing it that way, chasing something you love, because there's still a light that you're chasing after, as you're kind of flailing around in the mist. You still have some sort of internal guide that's going to lead you into harbor and, keep you moving in a progressive state, rather than, you're just kind of flailing in the dark. At least you have some sort of dim light when you're not defining progress in some sort of material sense. And, it might even seem futile at times, but at the risk of sounding like an old man, I think it builds character, and that's really what progressing as a human being is all about.
And this is what I love so much about powerlifting. You meet people who kind of represent the pillar of what you're working towards and what you want to be and what you want to represent as an individual.
For sure.
And you don't find a heck of a lot of people like that.